Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health concerns using the labs you already have. Your doctor might tell you your blood work is normal, but I'm here to teach you a better way. If you're a doctor or a health coach and anything in between, there's one for you too. Download your cheat guides and register here at drkylieburton.com. This podcast is sponsored by Systemic Formulas and Nutribiome. Systemic Formulas, the supplement company I trust with my patients and family. Instead of ordering from a handful of companies, I use 95% SF products. They're top-of-the-line quality with the best lab west of the Mississippi. They're pure, potent, and they get results. In fact, I recommend you follow their Instagram at Systemic Formulas Institute. Also, the man who's behind the Systemic Formulas products, Dr. Shane Morris, is launching a new line of supplements designed to take your microbiome to the next level. He has specific prebiotics designed to feed the probiotics. Learn more and order soon at mybiome.com. All right, let's jump into the episode. Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast, where Karen and I have been talking for the last 30 minutes. So it's finally time that we get to hit record and introduce you guys, get you guys in on our conversation. Karen is a thyroid and hormone master. In fact, she is backed by popular demand. She's been here 2 times before, and this is the 3rd time. So if you haven't found Karen yet, well, here she is. And come join her on her podcast called The Other Side of Weight Loss. Karen, let's talk about the thyroid today, and what do you do when you don't have one?
Yes. Well, hi, everybody. Hi, Kylie. Nice to be back. I want you back on my podcast too. It's always good to talk with you. So let's narrow this down. Are we talking like Hashimoto's, or are we talking cancer? We got a thyroidectomy. Or both? Thyroidectomy.
Let's do both, because people are talking about Hashimoto's and they're not doing it right either. No. So let's talk Hashimoto's, and let's talk, I've had a complete thyroidectomy. What do I do?
Yeah. Because with Hashimoto's, you're slowly destroying your thyroid. Your body's going to be attacking it. So if your antibodies are high, then you can just basically say to yourself, okay, my body is actively destroying my thyroid, and you need to bring those antibodies down. You can throw in all the medication you want, which will help to a certain extent, but you need to get those antibodies down. And that's what's going to help you to stop destroying your thyroid, or else you're just going to have to need more and more and more medication, which your doctor probably won't agree with, because you're destroying more and more of the thyroid. So I've had people that have it's completely atrophied their thyroid, and they have to be on a physiologic restoration of thyroid medication. And this is what we're going to talk about today, because when you have a thyroidectomy, same thing is without that thyroid, you need to give your body the amount that it would naturally be producing. And most people aren't given that. Most patients, most thyroid people that have had thyroid cancer and have had it removed, and even with Hashimoto's and all hypothyroid patients, are predominantly given T4 only medication. And I know your listeners are probably very familiar with that, which is, yes, they go to their doctor and that's all they're given. And a lot of cancer patients are told they can't take natural desiccated thyroid because it's not regulated, which is complete baloney. And they'll say you don't know how much you're exactly getting, which is the most ridiculous thing in the whole world. It's been here for over 100 years. Natural desiccated thyroid. It was originally what was used for thyroid medication. And then pharmaceutical companies decided, no, we're just going to give T4 only, and told all the doctors, this is all these thyroid patients need. Well, in most cases, especially the cancer patients, Hashimoto's patients, there is a level of inflammation in these people's bodies, almost always with Hashimoto's, right? You've got some leaky gut. We know you're inflamed. We know there's some problems going on, maybe some infections going on the inside. And so when that's happening, your body's going to have a very hard time converting T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone, to T3, the active thyroid hormone. So majority of women, men too, if you've had your thyroid removed or you've got Hashimoto's and you're destroying your thyroid, 95% of the time, if not more, that person's going to do better on either natural desiccated thyroid or a combination of Synthroid and Cytomel, which is just the pharmaceutical grade T4 only and T3 only, or a compounded one of both of those. A lot of compounding pharmacies will put those two together into a pill. Or many people nowadays have to be on T3 only. And you will be so hard pressed to find a doctor that understands reverse T3 problems and is willing to give you enough T3 that would be what is considered a physiologic dose, which is what your body needs to have a functioning thyroid level in the body, which means a functioning metabolism. And it's much more than people think. Like, I remember my doctor, I went in and I was telling her about my thyroid problem. I'd been seeing a functional doctor, but then I went to her to get my prescription renewed. And I lied to her and said I was on 50 micrograms because I knew she would crap her pants if she heard I was on 75 micrograms. And she almost fell out of her chair when I told her that I was on 50. What?
And you were lying because you were really on 75.
Exactly. I'm thinking, oh my God, you have no idea, woman. And I've been on this for years at this point, but she was like, oh, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. It's such nonsense. I mean, I track my heart rate. I track my body temperature. I'm not going to give myself a heart attack. Actually, the heart depends on T3 to function properly. So you need enough T3 to have a good functioning heart. So when you have no thyroid, you are no different than a hypothyroid patient that will ideally do better on a T3, T4 combination. If you're having troubles though, because you've got cancer, you might have inflammation. That cancer could have likely did cause a ton of stress. Well, high cortisol will make that T3 and T4 convert into reverse T3. So there's a good number of people that have to look at their reverse T3, have to look at their free T3 levels, their free T4 levels, and go, and not just their TSH, and go, okay, is my body converting this T4 into T3? And I will tell you what, most people don't do that conversion very well nowadays, whether it's gut problems, because we convert T4 to T3 in the gut. Some people, it's a genetic thing, a stress thing, iron deficiency, iodine deficiency, infection, heavy metals, mold, Lyme. All of these things heavily impact your body's ability to convert T4 to the usable form of T3. Reverse T3 is this storage hormone that is there as a backup in times of disease and times of famine. So you'll see people's reverse T3, for instance, go up if they're fasting too much, if they're in a super low caloric diet, if they're hardcore keto, OMAD, 1 meal a day. I see it every day in my practice where people have just shot their T3 and their reverse T3 has gone up too far. And too far is anything over 15. It's not what the range says. The range goes up to 23. You want to be ideally under 12, definitely under 15.
That's reverse T3, right?
That's reverse T3.
Okay, everybody check your labs. If you have a reverse T3, awesome. If you don't, go demand that your doctor take a reverse T3. And I say demand because they won't.
They won't.
You need to demand it. And also demand that you're getting the antibodies, the TPO and TG antibodies, because that is like the most commonly misdiagnosed thyroid problem out there is because they're just taking a stupid TSH.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. In Canada, Kylie, we do not have a lab that even tests reverse T3.
What?
Doctors have been told the last couple of years, they were told that they are no longer allowed to test free T3 or free T4. They can only test TSH. And if TSH comes back elevated and over range, then they're allowed to test the free T3 and free T4. So you have to go to a naturopath here, and then the naturopath will send it to California to be tested for reverse T3. But in the United States, you guys can order these online. You can do it through Ulta Labs. You can do it through Paloma Health. Those are the
Quest has one where
Quest.
you can get the kit shipped to your house too, and that's what we're talking about. You can order these labs; they'll ship the kit to your house, and it's typically a finger prick.
Yeah, like Paloma Health, they'll do reverse T3 and the whole thyroid panel with all the antibodies. I think it's maybe $125.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it's one of the most important tests to have done, especially if you're struggling with any health problems at all. I just had the last 2 days, 2 women, one woman not having to lose weight, but having a ton of hormonal problems, anxiety, like lots of mind stuff, like mental stuff that she's just like, she's feels like she's really falling apart and can't figure out what's happening. We've tested her hormones. Finally, her reverse T3 comes back, and sure enough, it's like way off the charts. And hers was actually truly over 24. And so I was like, this is why you don't feel good. Hello. Another ladies is overweight, can't lose weight no matter what she's doing, and depressed and so tired. She's like, she can't even keep her eyes open. She cannot figure it out. We did all the labs, all of Kylie's labs. Kylie recommends.
Blood work. Get it.
And sure enough, her reverse T3 comes back elevated. And I was like, bingo, right? And so super important.
Let's talk about reverse T3 because I don't talk about it much. We do TSH, T4, T3, and the antibodies. But reverse T3, if you want to talk metabolism, you need to know your reverse T3. So what are the key? I mean, when people get a reverse T3 and you're like, oh, well, that's why you feel like crap.
Yeah.
What does it tell you? Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll quickly share my own personal story with it because I had been suffering with weight loss resistance for what seemed like a lifetime, had it, under control, but was still like, for how I ate, I was like, I should be like in a bikini model for how well I eat here. This is ridiculous. And finally, I had a naturopath that said, test your thyroid. And I was like, oh, I've had my thyroid test. I had my TSH done. I had my free T4 done. And they were in normal range. And he said, do your free T3. So I do it. And he phones me a week later and says, how are you walking around? You have no T3. And I was like, oh my God. And at this point in time, I have known nothing about thyroid, really. And so on I go to take it's here in Canada, it's called IRFA. So it's a desiccated thyroid, T4, T3. Within a couple of months, I'm losing weight for the first time in my life effortlessly. I'm eating more. My metabolism was up. I was more social. I was feeling the best I'd felt in 10 years. And I was like, yes, this is it. 3 months went by and suddenly these symptoms started to creep up where I started to get really depressed. And I'm not a depressed person. I'm super optimistic. I was like, oh, this is weird. Am I just stressed out from work? What is this? Then I got fatigued. Like I've never been tired before. Like I couldn't get off my couch. My skin was so itchy. Like it was weird. My breasts got inflamed. My period became irregular. I was like totally losing my mind. I was like, what is the matter with me? And I gained 10 pounds in a month without doing anything. So I had my reverse T3. And now looking back, if I knew what I knew now, I would have been like, okay, well, why is T4 normal, but my T3 is too low? That's the first sign that says If it ain't going into T3, free T3, where's it going? There's only one other place, reverse T3. So if you've got a normal T4, normal TSH, but low free T3, that's a really good sign that you have an elevated reverse T3 and something's going on. So I went from 15 to 19, and that's what happened to me. And it took me close to a year to pull myself out of that place and to figure out, why am I going into reverse T3? Because this is the thing. If you're converting to reverse T3, there's a cause. Sometimes it's genetics. The deodoinase enzymes, you could be missing those like as a genetic thing. And that means that you're going to just always be somebody that will have a hard time converting T4 to T3. Besides that, like I had said before, there's many reasons. It can be that high cortisol, low iodine, starvation diets, too low calorie, too low carb, infection. I ended up finding out I was riddled with heavy metals, and heavy metals love the thyroid. So they'll glom onto it. And so I've now been years doing on and off heavy metal chelation, which is, it's a long, terrible process. I had to find the right dose of T3. And when you are trying to find the right dose, you guys, you have to at the same time be figuring out the root cause of the problem, but at the same time finding the right dose for you. And it's rarely what the doctors seem to think that it is. Like they'll give you T4 only, first of all. If you ask for desiccated thyroid, they think like, oh my God, like it's witchery. So you have to pay the money, honestly. Don't, like, endocrinologists, doctors, I've had the worst luck with all of them, with all of my clients. Very rarely do I hear of a doctor or an endocrinologist, I think maybe a couple in the last 7 years, that have been like, oh yeah, sure, you want desiccated thyroid, or you need to be on T3 only? Yeah, sure, okay. Most are like,
I have a name, I'll give it to you.
Amy Horniman.
Dr. Tabitha.
Oh.
She is actually a trained OBGYN who has left Western medicine and does functional medicine. And that girl, I mean, she has a license in 27 states.
Wow.
I mean, talk about overachiever.
Yeah.
But she's also been on this podcast, and she will be on season 4 again. So Dr. Tabitha Duell, I will connect her with you, you too, because she also has a podcast.
Yes.
She used to call herself the functional gynecologist, and she just barely switched it over. And for the life of me, I can't think of what it is, but the gutsy, there you go. The gutsy gynecologist. That's her new.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because these are hard to find.
Yeah, they're rare. And I'm like, the fact that you have a license to do the prescription is so nice.
So nice.
You and I don't.
Gosh, no, we don't. But I still do, and I know you do too, a ton of thyroid coaching, because thyroid patients really struggle to get the answers for them. And it really does have to be such a holistic approach. Like I said, like with the Hashimoto's, you can't just go, oh, here's the medication, see you later. Like if your antibodies are elevated, that's a big red flag. And oftentimes Hashimoto's is what they call the gateway autoimmune condition, which just means it's a lot of the time it's the first to appear.
It's the first, you got multiple coming.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't take care of it, it's going to be this like chain event of possibly developing more. And so you really have to, you have to take food, supplements, all of the stress management, gut health, all of it has to be considered when it comes to the thyroid, because our thyroid runs the show in our body. There's T3 receptors on every cell in our body. So it's going to help everything to function better. And if you don't have a working metabolism, you're never going to lose weight. Everyone's always like, well, how do I lose weight with hypothyroidism? And I'm like, you don't have a metabolism. You have to get a metabolism first. And that might just be medication. Some people can get away with just medication if they're just simply hypothyroid, or maybe they got the enzyme problem, whatever. Some people can just get away with it. But a lot of the time, it's got to be this very holistic approach to go, okay, well, why do we have this? Why does this person present with this? There's even a lot of cancer patients. Like if you start to really dig into the research, a lot of cancer patients that have had a thyroidectomy have had such terrible experiences with it that they actually say, I wish I had never gotten rid of my thyroid. Like I would rather live with the cancer than be going through what I'm going through right now without a thyroid and without proper medication.
Yeah. There's a supplement that that I love to use, and I'm going to reference it, but you can't get it. You can order it on my website. They just don't directly, the company doesn't directly ship it internationally. But if you order it from me, I'll get it from you. It's called Super Oxycell. It comes from Apex Energetics, but it is a high powered antioxidant cream. And the fact that it's a cream, you can actually, and what I love recommending people to do with it is just take it and apply it topically right over your thyroid tissue on your thyroid or on your neck. And what it's doing is it's literally protecting your thyroid cells. So you can use that to protect while you're going in and healing all of the things that, if you think about your thyroid as it's just trying to swim and keep its head above the water, and there are so many things trying to pull it down and sink it, you got to get rid of all these underlying things trying to pull it down and sink it before it can ever float on its own. Use the medication as needed by someone who knows what the crap they're doing, Karen Martel. So you get the right dose, you get the right combination, and then do all the underlying work to naturally rev up your metabolism if needed. However, if you don't have a thyroid, you're going to need medication, correct?
Correct. And you want to get on the right dose. Like when my reverse T3 went up really high, if a doctor here in Canada had just looked at my free T3 and free T4 levels, they would have thought I was hyperthyroid because my T3 was so high. But yet I wasn't able to get off the couch, and I just gained 10 pounds on my body within weeks. But yet they would have thought I was hyperthyroid, which would have made me super skinny and like jumping off the walls. So looking at labs, but my T3 was just swimming around in my blood. It wasn't actually getting into the cell and doing what it was supposed to do. Maybe it was going in there. They don't actually know. They've never been able to, you can't look inside the cell, but whatever it is, if some people call it pooling, then I've heard that pooling isn't actually a thing, that is getting into the cell, but it's not actually functioning properly. If someone had seen that, they would have been like, oh, you're hyper, get off this medication. You're done way too much. So labs are a good thing to see for sure. And we want to see that free T4 around mid-range. We want to see free T3 in the upper quarter of the range if you're on medication. And you want to see that TSH below 2. Ideally, 2.2, 2.5. I think you say 3, right, Kylie?
I say 1.8 to 3.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I always say like 2 to 2.5, nothing higher, but you really need to go on how do you feel? And you want to like, how is your symptoms? Like I had weird things like restless leg syndrome. When I went from 50 micrograms to 75 micrograms, my restless leg syndrome went away. So like little things, you pay attention because you don't know what thyroid's really doing to like what it's impacting until you go, oh, this feels better. Who knew like how I got more social when I was getting enough thyroid. I was like, oh, I want to go out and hang out with people. Like how strange. I thought I was just getting old and that I'd like to be a bit of a homebody. The second thing you want to do is take your basal body temperature. I always have this with me at all times on my desk. For those of you that aren't watching the video, it's called a Garotherm thermometer. It looks like an old mercury thermometer. They're a bit of a pain in the butt because you got to shake them down. You can find them on Amazon, Garotherm. You want to stick it under your tongue for 10 minutes. I say in the second half of the cycle because your metabolism is supposed to come up to 98.6 in the second half of your cycle. So if you're taking your body temperature in middle of the afternoon, sit down, take it for 10 minutes. If you're consistently coming under, let's say 98.2 and under, then you know that you're not on enough medication. And it might not be that it's needed more, that you need more medication. It might simply be that you haven't got to the root of the problem to make that thyroid medication work in your body. So I always say try with the medication first, because you do want to be optimized while you try and get to the root of the problem. And things like under functioning thyroid can lead to insulin resistance, high cholesterol. It can lead to a whole slew of other hormonal problems. So, you can try the medication first, but just know that there's other factors that are involved in it. But
you said earlier that the thyroid, heavy metals love the thyroid.
Yeah.
And that's totally true. Heavy metals love to hang out in that tissue just because that's how the tissue is designed. They like that. So when you're doing heavy metal detox, one, make sure you're doing it correctly. And
that's debatable.
Yeah.
You'll hear a different thing.
Depending on your resource will depend on what correctly is, right? Yeah. And people harp on detox. And yes, it's important, but make sure you're doing it correctly, and don't just say, well, I did a liver cleanse or I did a detox with this person. Because so many times people will say they've done detox, and I ask, what did you do? Well, I did some herbs, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't ever do the job. Toxins are tricky. They're like parasites. They're tricky too. So make sure you're working with someone and not just DIYing this.
Especially heavy metals. I started to lose my sight when I started doing heavy metal detox.
And people are like, well, it's a detox reaction, or whatever they want to call it, a Hirsch reaction, if you're not getting rid of it. And that's the other thing too, is make sure that your body's eliminating these things.
Yeah.
You can churn them up with all these supplements that are out on the market and get them inside your body, but make sure they get out.
Yeah. There's very little heavy metal chelators that don't redistribute the heavy metals. Yeah. There's question if there's any, to be honest.
Which is why there are people who detox year after year after year after year after year and have only made like 10% progress.
Yep. So. Yeah. It's a terrible thing.
Okay. Heavy metals can definitely impact the thyroid. Key takeaways: Hashimoto's, if you have a thyroid concern and you have not received antibodies within the labs, you need to be sure you get better labs taken. So definitely ask for TPO and TG antibodies. If you don't have a reverse T3 in your labs, get it. And as we have discussed, there are other options you can get these things, not just through a primary care physician. So Hashimoto's will be determined by the antibodies, TPO and TG antibodies. A thyroidectomy, if your thyroid is removed, work with someone who can get you on the right combination.
Yeah, spend the money and see somebody that really knows what they're doing. It's a matter of quality of life, and you don't want to spend their next 50 years of your life in misery, chasing these symptoms and fighting with a doctor that's not going to listen to you and that doesn't understand thyroid. Pay the money, see somebody that gets it, that can prescribe you proper medication and that can help you.
And I want to point out, because I have a couple episodes called Stop Chasing Your Symptoms, because I love that idea, right? You said earlier that you had restless leg syndrome. And if you were to go get diagnosed, they would have diagnosed you with RLS, throw on some high-powered medication, which I've had multiple patients on, when in reality, that medication, and so oftentimes we go to Dr. Google and we say, what causes RLS? And we take the next supplement, and then that doesn't work. So then we grab another one. We're still chasing the RLS for restless legs. When in reality, Karen discovered what was causing that was the thyroid. Do thyroids have impact on our nervous system for restless legs? You bet they do. The thyroid T3 hormone communicates with every cell in the body.
Yeah. It's
just a little bit of an important gland, not too important. All right, Karen, be sure you find her podcast. It's called The Other Side of Weight Loss.
Yeah.
And go find her website, which is what?
KarenMartel.com.
Karen, KarenMartel.com. Yep. This girl knows her hormones, she knows her thyroid, and she knows how to eat to maximize the hormones. So go join her. Thanks, Karen.
Kylie.
Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health concerns using the labs you already have. Your doctor might tell you your blood work is normal, but I'm here to teach you a better way. If you're a doctor or a health coach and anything in between, there's one for you too. Download your cheat guides and register here at drkylieburton.com. This podcast is sponsored by Systemic Formulas and Nutribiome. Systemic Formulas, the supplement company I trust with my patients and family. Instead of ordering from a handful of companies, I use 95% SF products. They're top-of-the-line quality with the best lab west of the Mississippi. They're pure, potent, and they get results. In fact, I recommend you follow their Instagram at Systemic Formulas Institute. Also, the man who's behind the Systemic Formulas products, Dr. Shane Morris, is launching a new line of supplements designed to take your microbiome to the next level. He has specific prebiotics designed to feed the probiotics. Learn more and order soon at mybiome.com. mybyome.com.